Can you clarify when the...
And you've been listening to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre holding the daily press briefing. This one, of course, dominated by the prisoner swap, resulting in the release of WNBA star Brittney Griner. We heard there that she reiterated how officials have also spoken with the family of Paul Whelan and are committed to keep working for his release. But Jean-Pierre says from the Russian side of the negotiations, Whelan was never on the table here, and the U.S. was faced with a difficult decision over one or none.
So joining us now is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. So, Ed, give us some context. You know, we're coming to you out of the White House press briefing. What did we learn about the release of Brittney Griner?
Well, the one headline I heard is that Griner is coming home to the U.S. today. They haven't yet sought clarification there in the room about when and where exactly she may be going. There are some potential places. It's unlikely to be directly to Phoenix, where she, where her wife Sherelle at least has been over the course of this, and where she played for the WNBA team there. So we'll wait and see if we can learn more about that. But more than anything, this is designed at this hour, I guess, to sort of explain and defend yet again the administration's work on this and to make clear that they're continuing to work for Paul Whelan's release. But you heard Arweesha Zhang and others asking what makes this case and the celebrity factor around it so different from Whelan's, a former Marine who's been sitting there in Russia for 4 years against his will. And you heard Karine continue to say the Russians just treat him differently in this regard. And we should point out the Whelan family conceded that in their statement earlier today, saying that these two cases are unrelated, not tied together, and they could appreciate why it is that she might be released before he is. But he's coming up on about 4 years of detention at the end of this month in Russia, and his family, of course, continues to push and hope that his release is imminent.
Ed, considering the cold, frigid, rather, climate between the U.S. and Russia right now, how rare is it that an agreement like this, of this nature, is made between the Kremlin and the White House? And how, if at all, could it change their relationship moving forward in light of larger geopolitical events?
U.S. officials have said this element of the U.S.-Russia relationship is on a different track than the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the broader military and economic and national security implications that has for the world. Remember, this was an issue that came up in the meeting, the only face-to-face meeting that President Biden and Vladimir Putin had back in 2021 in Geneva. It was a topic of conversation, Whelan specifically, in fact. Trevor Reed, remember, was released later. There have been other conversations with the Venezuelan government regarding some oil workers that were detained there. And there is a whole State Department office that deals with the detention, what the U.S. calls the unlawful detention of Americans in different countries around the world. Dozens of Americans continue to be held against their will on trumped-up charges, and it is that office's responsibility to seek their release. And this has happened a handful of times, especially over the course of this century in the post-9/11 era, and it's been a top priority for the President and Secretary of State, no matter which party or which president is serving.
So President Biden pledged today the U.S. will, quote, never give up on securing the release of Paul Whelan. What more, Ed, do we actually know about the Biden administration's ongoing efforts to bring him home? And I'm curious, does that failure to also secure Whelan's release, how is that viewed in Washington?
There have been some who've been on this air today and others in the Republican Party who've expressed concern that he was once again left behind and that Victor Bout, this so-called murderous madman who had arranged to try to kill Americans overseas and who was serving a 25-year sentence, was released in exchange for Brittney Griner. There's sort of a question of the balance in the exchange, somebody who was there on minor drug charges versus somebody who's been there for far longer on different espionage-related charges, again, ones that the U.S. disputes. So there will be ongoing debate and concern about that, not only among Republican lawmakers and former national security officials, but also current and former Justice Department and Pentagon officials who are concerned that either Victor Bout could return to being an arms trafficker or the precedent it sets that such a high-profile international criminal was released before his sentence was over. There are others, though, who have said to CBS News today, look, he had served most of that sentence. He is a changed man, and for the greater good of getting Griner's return, perhaps this was a a fair and equitable swap. So there'll continue to be debate over it, but the bottom line is she is on her way home, and the pursuit for Paul Whelan's freedom continues.
Right. A complicated situation. Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we will have much more on the release of WNBA star Brittney Griner on tonight's Red and Blue. Viewers will also get early input on the 2024 election from the man who served as Bernie Sanders' campaign manager during his 2020 run for president. And you can stream Red and Blue on CBS News every night from Monday to Thursday.